In Silver Creek, a biker's roar became an act of courage when Dylan Cross stood up for a broken waitress. What happened next will change the town forever and prove that true heroes sometimes wear leather, not capes. The morning sun had barely climbed above the rooftops of Silver Creek when the calm was shattered by the deep roar of motorcycle engines. Birds scattered from telephone wires, and the dusty main street trembled as a line of bikes rolled in, chrome flashing under the light. The townsfolk turned to stare, their conversations dying mid-sentence. Leading the group was Dylan Cross, the kind of man who carried his past on his face. Sharp eyes, rugged jaw, and a silence that spoke louder than words. His name traveled faster than his wheels. Some feared him, others respected him, but no one really knew him. As the riders parked in front of Hazel's diner, the steady hum of engines faded into an uneasy hush. Inside the diner, forks froze midair, and the jukebox hummed quietly. The locals watched as Dylan and his crew stepped in, their presence filling the small space with a heavy kind of calm. Behind the counter moved a young woman named Lena. Her name tag was slightly bent, her hands moving quickly as she poured coffee and refilled plates. She wore a polite smile, but her eyes told another story. Tired, guarded, almost hollow. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop your country in the comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Now let's continue. When she leaned toward Dylan to pour his coffee, he noticed a faint bruise along her jawline, poorly hidden under a layer of foundation. It wasn't hard to guess where it came from. Dylan's chest tightened. He had seen that look of quiet pain before years ago, on someone he once loved and couldn't save. The manager, Carl, shouted from the kitchen, his voice sharp and cruel. Lena flinched, murmured an apology, and hurried away. Dylan's gaze followed her every step, his mind stirring with something he hadn't felt in a long time, anger mixed with empathy. The diner buzzed with chatter again, but Dylan heard none of it. He sat quietly, his coffee untouched, eyes fixed on Lena as she worked. He saw how Carl brushed past her roughly, how she shrank back each time he raised his voice. The sight dragged up old ghosts, the night he lost someone to the same kind of hidden suffering. As the minutes passed, a realization settled in his chest like a weight. He couldn't walk away this time. Not again. That night, back at his garage, the sound of laughter and rock music from his biker brothers barely reached Dylan's ears. He sat alone beside his Harley, the neon light flickering against the walls. He thought about Lena, the bruise, the trembling hands, the silence she carried. Memories of his past crashed in waves. He had failed to stop the pain once before. He swore he wouldn't make the same mistake twice. As the night grew deeper, his decision grew clearer. Tomorrow he would return to Hazel's diner, not for food or coffee, but for justice. Morning came golden and quiet. Lena arrived early, tying her hair neatly and putting on her practiced smile. She froze when she saw the motorcycles lined outside again. Dylan was already seated at the counter, calm and still, waiting. When she approached, he looked at her kindly and asked, "You all right?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, I'm fine." He tilted his head slightly. "You don't have to be." That simple sentence cracked the wall she had built around herself. Tears spilled down before she could stop them. The moment felt fragile, until Carl burst through the kitchen door. His face twisted in anger. "What's going on here?" he barked, marching forward. Dylan rose slowly from his seat. His brothers stood up behind him, silent as shadows. Carl hesitated but sneered. "You got a problem, tough guy?" Dylan stepped closer, his tone even. "Yeah, you think hurting people makes you strong. Doesn't. It just shows what kind of coward you are." The diner went still. Carl's face paled as he looked at the group of bikers behind Dylan, men whose silence spoke volumes. Muttering curses, Carl stormed out, slamming the door behind him. For a long, breathless moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the tension began to ease. Lena stood frozen, tears streaking her cheeks. She whispered a thank you so soft it nearly vanished. Dylan shook his head. You don't owe me that. Just promise yourself you'll start fresh. An old man sitting by the window started clapping, hesitantly at first. Then others joined in until the diner filled with applause. People who had once looked away now felt the weight of their silence. That day, fear lost its power. Word of what happened traveled fast. The Iron Brotherhood, once seen as dangerous drifters, were now the talk of Silver Creek, for the right reasons. The next week, Lena left Hazel's diner and took a job at June's Coffee Haven, a small cafe owned by a kind-hearted widow. There she found peace. The dark circles under her eyes faded, replaced by the kind of smile that came from real freedom. Every now and then, Dylan stopped by. He'd order black coffee, ask how she was, and leave a generous tip before heading back to the road. He never called himself a hero. He didn't need to. His presence alone was a quiet reminder that good men still existed, even among those judged too quickly. Meanwhile, Dylan's biker group began to change too. Inspired by what happened, they organized charity rides for shelters, food drives for struggling families, and fundraisers for women in need. The men once labeled outlaws were now building a new legacy, one of compassion wrapped in leather and steel. Months later, as twilight painted the horizon in gold and purple, Lena stood outside the cafe, locking up for the night. The distant rumble of engines drifted toward her, growing louder until she saw the familiar line of motorcycles rolling down the road. As they passed, the leader raised his hand in a small wave. Dylan didn't stop, didn't speak. He just rode by, his silhouette fading into the sunset. Lena smiled through tears. That single wave meant everything. A thank you, a goodbye, a promise that she was safe now. The townsfolk who once whispered about the bikers now told a different story. They didn't talk about noise or rebellion anymore. They spoke of courage, of kindness, of the day Silver Creek learned that heroes sometimes arrive on two wheels. That evening, the last sound the town heard wasn't the thunder of engines but the silence that followed, the kind that settles deep in your heart when compassion finally speaks louder than fear. Moral of the story: kindness doesn't always come with gentle hands or soft words. Sometimes it rides in wearing leather, carrying scars, and proving that even the toughest hearts can still protect, heal, and love. If this story moved your heart, reminded you that even the roughest souls can carry the gentlest compassion, then don't just scroll away. Take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to Echoes of Life Stories, where every tale reminds us that kindness still exists, sometimes hidden behind scars, leather, or silence. Your one click helps us keep telling stories that heal, inspire, and bring hope to hearts that need it most. So please, if you believe in second chances, in redemption, and in the power of empathy, subscribe today and become part of a community that keeps the light of compassion alive. Because here at Echoes of Life Stories, every view, every share, and every subscriber keeps these echoes of goodness reaching farther than you can imagine.